In today's fast-paced business environments, data is everywhere. But turning that data into actionable insights is where the real value lies. For small and medium-sized enterprises, being able to see their business clearly through well-designed visualizations and report isn't just a nice to have. It's a powerful driver of growth. It's not only about pretty charts, it's about making smarter, faster decisions that lead to long-term success. Whether you're an entrepreneur trying to understand your cash flow at a glance, or an accountant helping clients move beyond static spreadsheets, visual reporting helps bridge the gap between raw data and real strategy. To unpack how SMEs and the advisors who support them can harness the power of visual tools to unlock opportunities and enhance performance, we're joined by Keith Barrett. Keith is an accounting and technology specialist with over 25 years of experience in financial management and software support. Known for his innovative thinking and technical know-how, Keith partners with clients to improve profitability through financial scenario modeling, systems analysis, and reporting, always with the focus on leveraging the latest tools and technology to add real value. Welcome, Keith, and thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you back at our SIFT offices, and epic that we can do it in person. Of course, as you know, we're going to be speaking a lot about visualizations today, but before we kick off, let's just talk a bit about your organization and how it supports the SME journey.
So Addiston is actually a group of companies which focus on mainly advisory kind of work, or at least that was our core business. Being entrepreneurs ourselves, we've kind of branched out into other areas where we've seen opportunities with clients and businesses that we've helped out. So yes, the core of our business is advisory, and we work from the point of view of mainly accounting and financial kind of advisory, but we also work with HR, BE strategies, those kinds of things, with trust structuring.
Okay.
So kind of a broad spectrum of that sort of advisory services. And then, well, because we saw opportunities, we've now branched out into technologies, which is what I head up. And that's really to take advantage of the fact that, there's a lot going on in the technology space, and other practices may not be in the same position as what we were to be able to kind of latch on to the technology that we wanted to use. So because I've got that background, many years ago, I was actually a PASL supporter.
Oh, wow.
So, and those days are far behind, but with that sort of expertise, it's allowed me to kind of get into apps a lot easier and quicker, and also given me, and I've got the skill set to be able to then support other practices or other businesses, clients specifically. In fact, Ariston tends to be one of my biggest clients in terms of best use of those apps, rolling them out, setting them up, all of those kinds of things. Also kind of searching for solutions for people, because often that's where it starts. People come to us and say, well, I've got this particular problem, how do I solve it? And then we go on a journey together.
Yeah, and I'm sure with your wealth of experience, and you're having these discussions, client brings a problem to you, because of your experience, you are able to diagnose, because you've seen it all before.
Well, yeah. So, what I realized is that often people are coming to me with a problem that they want to throw technology at. And they're then surprised to find me asking first about other things like, well, how are you going about doing this? What are the inputs? All of these kinds of things. Why? People, process, and technology. And the people and the process element of it is just as important. And sometimes that's actually where the issue is. And we're finding that because we kind of approach it in that more holistic sense, we're not there just to sell an app, as it were, then we can ensure that the solution that we give them is
Fit for purpose.
purpose.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, for sure.
So when your clients approach you, would you say that commonly you find it's not that they don't have the data, it's the people and the processes in the background aren't set up to kind of get the most value out of that data?
It can be that, it can be just a simple situation of, well, you're kind of following the wrong process. What often happens actually is that the data is not organized in a way that they can then use it, or they haven't put some thought into how to organize the data. So, like a simple example of in Zero, you can use tracking categories to add layers to your data so that you can pull, more reports that give you things from a different perspective.
More detailed analysis.
Absolutely. So then you start looking at those sorts of things, or maybe they don't. If they are dealing with actual products and things like that, they haven't got it properly categorized. So that you can't do product reports by category, GPs, and all of those kinds of things. So that's the sort of thing that you also want to look at. Is like, how is this data formatted in a sense, and how can we reformat it so that we get more value out of it?
Absolutely, that makes sense. And I guess the same could apply to visualizations, right? Garbage in, garbage out. It certainly helps with forming visualizations. What makes visualization so powerful, especially to an SME owner who might not have a strong financial background or any formal qualifications in the space?
Sure. And I think it would be a mistake for us to think that just because they don't understand the reports we're giving them with all these numbers on, that they somehow are not, let's put it straight, intelligent or something along those lines, because that's not the case. These people are usually quite intelligent.
They're on top
They
of it.
know how to run their business. What they don't have is that little skill set which allows you to kind of understand what drives the numbers. Okay, so if we paint a picture instead of just throwing a whole lot of numbers at the problem, then people can see what's going on. I noticed it's just how we process information. That processing it visually like that just works so much better. It's like a shortcut into the brain. Whereas, because we're trained to look at numbers and see the pattern, then we kind of extract the information, but it goes through a process. So I think that's exactly what it's about. It's about taking that shortcut to the brain and giving that person an understanding of what's really going on. What is the trend? What is the breakdown, or whatever it is?
If you're looking at a multi-period profit and loss statement, it's fairly meaningless, right?
Absolutely.
And making that the statement visual is, quite a nice change of pace.
And the balance sheet as well. I think that is a very opaque thing for most entrepreneurs, even some experienced business owners. That whole our equation, assets equals equity plus liabilities. What we're seeing is okay, here's the value in your business, and this is how it's been funded, and this is how it's supported. And yes, having debt doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. We kind of trained personally, because people don't like debt personally or have problems with debt. But from a business point of view, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a way of financing a business and helping it grow.
Of course, as long as you can service it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where the visualization.
And that's where the visualization comes in, because you can then, one of the most important ones for business owners, and especially ones when they're starting up, is some sort of cash flow.
Yeah.
Okay, because cash is king.
Cash is king.
And it doesn't really matter if I got a rand for every time a business owner asked me, but why am I showing a profit but I got no money in the bank? And that's exactly the problem, because the cash management is actually the most important thing that they've got to get under control in their business. So if you are showing them how they are spending their money, how it's coming in, and the timing of those things, which can be very important, you now extracting like some very important wisdom from their numbers that's helping them run their business. And then what we are doing is adding value.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be just crunching the numbers. We're not just supposed to be submitting returns.
Yeah.
Because those are what we call health factors. Okay, if you don't do it, something that will, sales might come after you, whatever. But if you do it, okay, well, we're just compliant now.
Fantastic, yeah. And that's the compliance element of things, so what?
Exactly.
But there's so much more to it.
There's so much more. Yeah.
Anecdotally, do you have a example? You don't have to name names of a SME that approached you who wanted to use visualizations or had an aha moment off the back of visualizations that you presented to them, that was kind of a turnaround for their business?
Well, a client, maybe not, but funnily enough, and this is to prove that, we put our money where our mouth is. We do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we had an aha moment because, our business, well, especially the accounting side, mostly runs on SLAs. So you expect your revenue to be pretty constant. And yet when we ran a visualization over like a 5-year period of turnover and so on, we realized actually there's a cyclical nature to our revenues. And that was mainly because of the sort of other ad hoc billing that was going on. And that kind of gave us, a pause for thought and said, okay, well, what's that all about? How do we tap into that?
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of changed the way we looked at our business.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Most valuable types of visualizations, I know you mentioned earlier, cash is king, so a cash flow graph would be really beneficial to an SME. Any other key visualizations you can think of for entrepreneurs and SMEs that are just getting off the ground?
So, yeah, look, definitely the cash flow thing. I think that when you start, profit and loss is still an important thing. But what changes about that when you do it in a more visual way, and especially I think when you start looking at maybe top 5 expenses and track those movements versus your turnover and so on, you definitely get a better, well, any business owner will get a better understanding of what's really, driving their business and where the costs are that they maybe need to have under control.
Yeah.
And what the impact of not hitting that sales target is.
Yeah.
Once you understand your expense base, you then have a much better understanding of where you should be targeting your sales.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got an idea of what sort of margin you want to achieve in your business. And those top 5 expenses, if you look at it more from a negative point of view, if you are struggling as a business, there is no point in, looking at your stationery bill if it's only 1,000 rand a month.
Yeah.
What are you going to save there? You're not going to save anything. You need to be saving maybe 30,000 rand a month. You need to be looking at the rent,
expenses.
your salaries, and so on and so forth, as harsh as that may be, to understand, okay, where is the fat that I can trim?
Yeah. Maybe not on wages or salaries, but
Well,
insurance fees.
Certainly, yes. And I think, definitely for small businesses, I would not say salaries.
Yeah.
Because the danger always is you trimming something that is revenue generating. So you basically shortcutting your ability to generate revenue. Obviously, much bigger businesses where there is a certain bloat and so on, fair enough.
Absolutely.
That's somewhere that you need to look.
Agreed. So we spoke about cash flow. We spoke about top 5 expenses, maybe, especially as a proportion of total expenses. Any other visualization or metric that is often overlooked by SMEs that would be an important consideration for them?
As a metric, for me, ultimately, I don't know, it's definitely not overlooked, but definitely the GP percentage is a very, very important. And what is maybe overlooked is that in service businesses, you tend to think, well, okay, what's my GP? I don't have a product that I'm selling. Well, in a sense, you do. You have your time that you're selling.
That's the product.
So you should be looking at your salary bill versus your revenue and working out that differential as a type of GP to be looked at and to understand, okay, are you getting the kind of productivity that you need? But also, are you, should you make a stronger effort to go out and sell? Because it might not be the productivity that's the issue. It's just that you don't have enough clients that you are servicing, and you really need to make an effort to go out there and sell. Things that are maybe to look at that are not financial. Something that we ourselves looked at, for example, was we took all of our clients and we looked at, well, how did we get these clients? What were the factors? And then we kind of blocked them and said, okay, well, what percentage was, referrals? What percentage were, blind referrals? What percentage were client referrals? What percentage came through whatever other channel, and so on. And we found that most of our clients actually came from client referrals.
Oh, wow.
Which led us down a path of making more of an effort to build relationships with our existing clients and do things with them, things that were outside of maybe business, to build that relationship.
Pays off.
It pays off.
Yeah.
And if you understand that, then you're not just looking at, okay, what are the financial metrics in my business, but you're looking at, now, how do I grow my business? So I will get beyond
story. Don't look at the figures at face value and make a decision. Try to seek to understand what the metric is telling you.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. Yes. Understand the why. What is the why here?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Back to visualizations and talking specifically about the history of visualizations. I know when we spoke prior to today, I thought as far back as it went was Excel. Apparently not.
Yes, I did mention that. There was a program called Lotus 123, which some people may very well remember, and they were pretty much the pioneers of spreadsheets back in the 90s. So they were the ones that actually came out talking about visualization with something called WYSIWYG.
Okay.
What you see is what you get.
Ah, that
Okay.
makes sense.
So, because initially, it may seem strange to think of now, but initially, what you saw on the screen wasn't necessarily what you would get printed out or, as an output. Irony, big irony, yeah. So, they pioneered that, but, then Excel came along, and, love him or hate him, Bill Gates really had an incredible business brain. And he packaged Office with the hardware, and the sort of it just became ubiquitous within the market, and the barrier to entry. Well, there wasn't any, because when you got your laptop, you got the spreadsheet. Software.
Leveled the playing field.
It completely, and it blew Lotus away, basically. And within a few years, they were gone.
Sure.
So, and now we kind of, in a sense, stuck with Excel. And here's the thing with Excel. We were talking about the speed with which technology is sort of not increasing, but getting evolving. Great word. And because Excel came in right at the beginning, they've had like 30 or 40 years of people to get used to them. Whereas the stuff that's coming out now, people have got like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then the next things come along.
Yeah.
So Excel has benefited from that, of that entrenchment.
Yeah. And having the monopoly, I suppose.
And having the monopoly, there's, as I said, there's kind of no barrier to entry to, you walk into an office, you're the first day on the job, you got a laptop, it's got Excel on it.
Open the spreadsheet.
And off you go.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's still used very widely in business today, even with full tech stacks and all the rest. Accountants love it, and we all know why. Speaking about Excel, and of course it is extremely customizable. When you are recommending to your clients who are specifically interested in visualizations, how do you draw the line, or how do you advise them in making their decision between an off-the-shelf visualization tool versus something a lot more customizable, and the time that it's going to take to produce the outputs that the SME is looking for?
Well, there are two major factors in that decision, and time is actually one of them. So the question, even for ourselves, we have to ask is, do I have the time to develop this myself? And do I have the knowledge, the expertise?
Yeah. Or do I have the time to obtain the knowledge?
And exactly, so all of those factor in. There's a cost element as well, but, depending on what you choose in terms of those things, the costs will apply. So most people don't have the expertise, first of all. They may have the time. So when they look at off the shelf, it just is kind of an ease of entry into that. And I think that's why there is a market for it, and why, in fact, for most people, it is preferable. I mean, unless you really, are gung-ho, and this is something you really like to do, I would not recommend, trying to develop your own sort of solution. I would go for the off-the-shelf. It's almost like, Excel, I don't know whether this is a good analogy, but, Excel to me is like, it is fully customizable, but it's in the sense of you want to build a Lego, whatever, Millennium Falcon, but someone is now giving you a a cast, a die,
Yeah.
and plastic.
Yeah.
And now you got to melt it down, make up the blocks yourself, then build it.
Yeah.
Okay? So fine. So now you've got your choices, colors, all that sort of thing. You can do all of that. Or you can just buy the set
Pre-made.
It's already got all the blocks that you need
Clear instructions.
with instructions. Boom, you can make your Millennium Falcon. You're still going to struggle, but you know at least that you've got everything that'll give
Just
you
about
what you
piecing
want.
it together. Excuse
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, okay. So probably not a great analogy, but there is something of that. So yes, for those who love fiddling, and maybe melting down wax and die casting, great, go for it. But most people, no, they just want the solution that is given to them, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think a lot of apps are built on that premise. And they are worth the money.
Yeah.
They are worth the money.
Had a good starting point as well.
Absolutely. The thing is that even from our point of view, from me as a technologies executive, I don't really want to be going into a client and starting to build a whole system for them.
From the ground up.
No. We'd rather say, okay, well, this is your app stack, and this is how we piece it all together. These are how they integrate with one another, and this is how it's going to solve that particular problem that you have. Plus some other, giving you some other added extras that you had on your wish list.
Absolutely. I think that's a good approach to take. And that leads me to my next section on digitization. When you are undertaking this digitization journey with an SME, how does it look? I'd imagine there's a bit of a change management process that goes into it as well. And probably a bit of a long journey to walk. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it is. In fact, I think that is where the biggest challenge is when you move into that digital space, which maybe for that particular client wasn't there before, or only there in pieces. I remember I had a client who was worried about being hacked. But his solution was to lock his computers up in a safe at night. So, that's kind of now you've got to change that person's mindset. From, okay, it's a physical problem with a physical solution to, no, it's not. It's a digital problem and it needs a digital solution.
Absolutely.
And then you also get that kind of situation where you have an electric screwdriver, and you find someone using it but turning it around like an old screwdriver,
Not using the tool correctly.
So that's where the change management comes in, because yes, people will see, okay, this is completely different. I've got something new that I need to learn, and they will probably make the effort to learn it, but their default position will be to use it in the same way as they used what they were using before. And that's where the change needs to come in, to understand that it's not something that you need to print out anymore. Because part of the digitalization process is to kind of remove paper out of the equation. So, you receive an invoice via email. You just forward it into Xero.
Doesn't need to be printed.
Doesn't need to be printed out.
You don't even need to print it to sign it.
Exactly.
Find it digitally.
And from there, you can prepare a payment. Maybe you want to use Approval Max, and there's a whole authorization process that then happens, completely paperless. And a payment is prepared. Then we pay it, digital banking. So that's all part of it. And it really does take a mindset change. Yeah.
Absolutely, I can imagine. Epic. Just a few questions to wrap up. Quick fire questions, as we call them here. Best book or podcast that you've read or listened to recently?
Yeah, I read a book. I don't know whether we allow swearing in this podcast, but The Subtle Art of Not Giving a...
That one.
Yeah, Mark Manson.
Yeah.
Surprising book, actually, because I found it wasn't so much about not giving as it was about giving a damn about the right things. And I thought that was actually very well put and very well put together. Podcasts, I tend to follow my interests, so I'll watch Egg Chasers. I don't know if anyone knows Egg Chasers, the rugby podcast, and that sort of thing.
Perfect. And then most valuable lesson you've learned when starting business?
Don't give up.
Persistence.
Tenacity. Just grit your teeth. Ariston has had its fair share of ups and downs. Before I joined, our founder, Reg, actually started a business in Durban, and got into business with another insurance broker. Things fell apart badly, and he ended up kind of almost restarting here in Joburg, and that's when I joined. And I got to tell you, he's got stories, but from those first 3 or 4 years when we started the business, it was tough. It was hand to mouth. It was all of those things. But I think it's a testament to the fact that we didn't give up, that we are where we are now. That we were able to grow a business that now is, well, if I take all of the business interests into account, is literally making turnover of tens of millions a month.
Sure.
So,
grit and determination.
That's not all profit, but it is an indication of like where we've come from and where we obviously wanting to go to.
Of course, onwards and upwards.
And upwards.
Keith Barrett from Ariston Global, thank you very much for joining us today.
Sure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now. And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast. That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.